Chelsea Football Club, there's been a lot of tension between the owners. There's an ownership struggle. Is there a sense, are you any closer to deciding whether or not you'll...
No, I think what the media writes about and talks about is exciting, right? But I just don't think it's realistic. I mean, I think if you look at, the evolution of the team, we've been aligned on what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build. It's a team that's young. It's a team that's got long contracts, and all these things were new. And of course, in order to do all those things that we've done, it's obviously because we're aligned. So I think if you look at what's actually happening, and don't follow kind of the shiny light, right, then you'll see that, there's core stability, there's been a long time theme, and I think we're executing on a plan that ultimately will have Chelsea where it belongs. I mean, we're sitting top 4 in the table right now.
But it's not at the top of the table, and some say that perhaps it can do better. But in terms of ownership, I mean, where is that going? Are you any closer to deciding whether you'll sell your stake
I think the status quo is something that's just fine. I think we've learned from each other, and I think we're really going to be able to work it out any which way.
So, status quo for the next foreseeable future.
And I think we have to think about long-term, what we're trying to accomplish. We have a big stadium development opportunity that we have to flesh out. And I think that's going to be where we're either aligned or we ultimately decide to go different ways. But again, I think that what's been written and what's been talked about, is much more drama than what is actually happening.
Let's talk about that stadium development, because it was something that was top of your agenda coming in. Is that going through, or will you be moving premises?
No, I think stadium development is going around the world. Right now we're going to see Africa build stadiums. Obviously here in Hong Kong, they're opening their new stadium for the very first time. So stadium development is definitely a theme. You're going to see the NBA go to Europe. You're going to see they need stadiums. They need arenas. Sporting infrastructure. I think we're just on the very front end of this sporting wave, and sporting infrastructure is going to be a big thing about it. We have 16, 20 years to figure out. Obviously, inside of London, it's really complex, right? It's not as if we're building something in the middle of a rural environment. So we have a lot of constituencies to make sure that we care about. Certainly the Chelsea fan base is one. But long term, I think we're going to be building something new, and we'll figure it out.
Let's talk about that value. You paid $2.5 billion for Chelsea FC.
Yeah.
Is the club worth less now that it hasn't won any trophies, that it didn't qualify for the European Champions League, or is it worth more just because of, the league being so popular?
I think the trend is our friend, in this industry. I think the opportunity to be able to grow the fan base around the world, right? Because unlike American sports, we have the ability to grow internationally and build our own revenue base, on that international fan base. So I think the opportunity is enormous. I think the Premier League is, sitting in a great place. I mean, one of the frustrating things as Chelsea owner is that the Premier League's become so competitive. But one of the great things about being in the Premier League is it's gotten so competitive. So, the depth and the quality of the teams are unlike any other league in Europe. Or anywhere in the world. So I think the whole element of what's going on, because I don't think it's not really a derivative of did it win last year or did it win this year, right? I mean, this is a club that just celebrated its 120th anniversary. And
so it's more valuable than what you paid for?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Where do you go from here? Because I know that I think you and your group bought a cricket team recently.
Yes.
Would you be interested in buying a cricket team in India, for instance? The IPL is huge. There's a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Is it something you might consider?
We haven't studied it, but this is one of the things we always like to do is to make small investments to figure out the landscape around us. And the opportunity in England is a small investment in a cricket club that will give us a lot more knowledge, a lot more insight, and we'll follow our experience and we'll follow our knowledge base. But if you look at kind of our whole investment strategy, we started out as lenders, right? And when you're lending, we also called that, we would date through the debt. We'd get to know a company, we'd get to know an industry, and as we got more and more comfortable, then we would expand further into the capital structure. So I think cricket's a perfect example of that. We love sport, we love what sport means, we love competition, and the opportunity in cricket in the UK we thought was a very unique opportunity. And whether that leads us to further development, I think having...
You're not saying no.
I'm not saying no, but I think I'm definitely not saying no. But I think Mark Walter and I have the potential to build probably the preeminent sports platform in the world, right? So that's one of the things that's continuously on our minds. And a global footprint for a top sports company in the world, right, sounds pretty interesting.
What do you make of valuations? Are these sports groups and teams getting way expensive? If you take a look at, I think it was Celtic that went for more than $6 billion, and that's possibly was the most expensive, purchase in North American history.
Yeah, I think if you look at what's going on in the NFL right now, right? The Eagles just traded for roughly $8.5 billion, I think, or $7.5 billion, something like that. So, a 10% non-controlling stake just traded at, north of that 6.1. That 6.1 reflects the fact that time shifts for any other media, right? But in the sports, you have to watch it live, so you're going to get a giant audience, and you're going to be able to talk to that audience in a very kind of direct way, right? If you're a media company, if you're an advertising company, so the fact is everything else is time shifting, and sports continues to get people's attention at that moment in time. That's extremely unique. So, right, I think when you think about the future of valuations, in the sporting industry, right, the whole NFL, right, it's probably worth $300 billion. Netflix trades at $400 billion right now. I'd rather own a share in the NFL at $300 billion than a share of Netflix at $400 billion. The fact is, when you own and control intellectual property like that, you're only limited by your creativity as to where it can go. So I think that the industry is going to continue to go up in value, but it's because there's more attention, more revenue coming in its direction. So it's not as if these valuations aren't making sense. They continue to make sense. And there's very few of them, right? But they're the beating heart around the industry. And then you have all these other industries developing around the beating heart. And the beating heart continues to go up in value. All the other ancillary activity is going to continue to go up in value.
What next for you? What are you eyeing? What would you like to buy? What would you like to expand?
I think we're really excited about a couple of our businesses right now. Metropolis, we're the largest parking lot operator in the U.S. We have over 2 million sites, 2 million parking spots, and we're integrating all this with technology and computer vision and large language models. And we just bought a facial recognition business. And I think one of the things we're seeing, right, is the fact if you want to be efficient with time, you have to trade your privacy, right? So ultimately, we went on that journey when we started with the smartphone. The smartphone really creates time. It creates the opportunity to be more efficient. And now, I think we're going to continue along that journey. But you're going to get to a point where you're going to be able to walk into a store, and they're going to have everything laid out for you. You're going to be able to try it on. You're going to be able to leave, right? So you're just all about saving time. Time is the denominator in all of these equations.